As we all know, this Thursday is Lag Ba Omer, and throughout the world, it's celebrated as a day of joy and happiness, celebration everywhere. In order to properly feel Lag Ba Omer, you have to go to Israel. I remember my first year after high school, where I was in yeshiva in Israel, in Sanhedrin, Merchevet, and Chavetz Chaim, and from 4 weeks before Lag Ba Omer, all these little kids, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8, all ages, running around. There was like a little forest behind their yeshiva, collecting pieces of wood. But you have to understand, by Lag Ba Omer, they had this huge pile of wood. Must have been 10, 15 feet high. And sometimes you would see these little 7-year-old kids, like 8 or 9 of them, carrying these 10-foot logs, 10-foot pieces of a tree, and they would come and pile it on. And Lag Ba Omer night, they would lit it up. Well, I was in yeshiva, I was on the 3rd or 4th floor. They lit it on fire. This thing just went, what was up, like 7, 8 stories high. That's how high the flame came. It's an unbelievable sight. Throughout the world, it's celebration. Again, I haven't been in LA for Lag Ba Omer in good 18, 19 years since high school when I left. Haven't come back. So I don't know how much partying goes on here, but definitely in New York and other places, there's a lot of celebration. And it behooves us to ask, what exactly is the celebration all about? If we're celebrating, we're listening to music, and the joy starts, what exactly are we celebrating this Thursday, Lag Ba Omer? So the two potential reasons given for the celebration. One is related to the Rashbi. Who was the Rashbi? Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. The famous Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar, the author of the Kabbalistic writing. And it's written that he was ordained by Rabbi Akiva on this day of Lag Ba Omer. And he also happened to die on the day of Lag Ba Omer. And although generally a day of a death of a tzaddik is not a day of joy, it is a sad day, and we mourn and we fast on a day of the death, the yortzeit of a tzaddik. On this day, it's a special day, it's a day of joy. Why? Because it's written in the books that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, on the last day of his life, he taught his students part of the Zohar called the Idra Zuta. Idra Zuta is a very deep, the deepest part of the Zohar. The deepest part of the Kabbalistic teaching was taught to his students on this day. And a lot of the secrets of the world were revealed to his students on this day. In fact, it's written that the sun did not set. It took much longer for the sun to set in order for him to be able to relate all these deep messages and transmit all these holy secrets to his students on this day. This is one reason given. This is a reason I'm not delving into. It's a little bit beyond me, but it's probably a whole lecture unto itself. So tonight I wanted to discuss a totally different explanation given, an explanation which is much more significant and much more important and practical in life. And namely, because it's written that the students of Rabbi Akiva, they stopped dying on this day. As the Gemara clearly writes, there's a Gemara in Yevamot. The Gemara says that Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 students. They all perished in this period from the second day of Passover till the 33rd, clearly written. It doesn't say clearly 33rd. It's a discussion if it's 33 or 34. And the reason being, like we said last week, they didn't give the proper respect and honor to each other. This was the reason of their death. So the Gemara writes that they stopped dying on this day. The reason potentially given for the joy is because the death stopped. If you look at the Shulchan Aruch, the book of the Halacha, the Shulchan Aruch writes clearly in Siman Tav Tzadi Gimel, where there's a machlokit, the argument between the Shulchan Aruch, the Beit Yosef, and the Ramah, which is the Ashkenazi rabbi, whether they died for 34 days or 33 days. The Shulchan Aruch writes that we don't shave or get haircuts till the 34th day. And then the Ramah in small print writes for the Ashkenazim that we don't hold that way. Rather, on the 33rd, we get haircuts and shave. Omar bin Boktzat Simcha. And we rejoice a little bit. It's a day of celebration, a day of joy. Why? So if you look at the Mishnah Berurah, the Chavetz Chaim writes, the words are, because he held that they stopped dying on the 33rd day. It seems from a simple glance at the halacha that the reason for the joy and for the celebration is because this tragic plague came to a halt, came to a complete stop on this day of Lag Ba Omer, and hence we rejoice. Sounds good? Sounds good? It should not sound good. I have one question on this. What in the world is going on here? This makes no sense whatsoever. I'm sure you heard from the time you were younger till now, so they stopped dying, so you celebrate. Picture, you have a big family of over 200 people. Lo aleinu, far it be from us, a plague breaks out, and the family members start dying. In a span of 30 days, this plague wipes out 197 members of this family. Now, do you think that the last 3 people that survived the plague are going to say, yes, we didn't die? Bring out the barbecue, bring out the bonfires, the music and the dancing, let's celebrate. We didn't die. The plague stopped, we stopped dying. This sounds like the most ludicrous thing in the world. What exactly are we celebrating? The students stopped dying. So what? There's no more to die. You know, you talk about a better example. I hate to give this example, but think about the Holocaust. 4 years of torturing the Jews, 4 years of killing over 6 million men, women, and children. Imagine that the few remaining souls after the Holocaust ended and they were liberated, they come out. Their families wiped out. Can you picture them? Let's party. Let's go clubbing. Let's have a good time. Bring out the barbecue. It's time for celebration. We survived. These are people who lost their whole families. What are you celebrating exactly? Over here in this case, it's much stronger question in a sense. It wasn't that there were some surviving people. There was not one student left from Rabbi Akiva. Every single one of his students, of the 24,000 great rabbis, whose entire Torah continued because of their Torah, they all died. They perished in this period. Not one left. What is there to celebrate? This is a time of joy. A simple understanding, you should be bothered by what in the world are we celebrating? It doesn't make any sense at all. To say that we're celebrating the fact that they stopped dying makes no sense. Everyone agree to the question? So this is a question I want to address. This question is actually asked by the Pri Chadash. Pri Chadash is one of the great commentators on the Shulchan Aruch. And he answers with the most fundamental, critical point. It's one of the most important lessons of life. Hence, you should tell your friends about this lecture. It will be on YouTube. You have to hear this out. He says as follows. You picture a young man who's very motivated, and he goes to college. He knows that all the money is in the real estate business. That's really how you become successful. Most of the people that are wealthy in LA and all over is through real estate. So he wants to become a contractor, go into architecture, and he goes to get his degree as a contractor. By the age of 24, he graduates, he gets his degree, and he's setting out to make millions. He puts together his bar mitzvah money and borrows some $10,000 here, $10,000 there. He puts together $50,000 for a down payment of this old decrepit house, Of course, this example will not apply in LA. LA, $50,000 will get you nowhere. You probably need $500,000 for down payment for an old decrepit house. But let's picture this guy was in Vegas or somewhere in some hick town, where a down payment 10% would be only about $50,000. $50,000 he puts in, he buys this old decrepit house, he moves into the house. After 2 years of living there, he puts together some money. He works like crazy, like a madman. He puts together money. And now he's able to remodel the house. He remodels the house, and after 2 years, he's able to sell it. He sells it coming out of that house after 2 years with $70,000 profit. $70,000 profit. He moves on to the next house. He buys another house with the money he has, and he lives there for 2 years. Again, the same story. This time he sells it for $100,000 profit. And he goes on to the next house. I know of a guy who did this. And he moves from one house to another house, building, remodeling, old houses. And by the age of 60, after 35 long years, this person was very successful. He amassed $30 million. Very successful. Now, at the age of 60, you would think you have $30 million in the bank, retire, go chill, buy a house in Miami, you have your winter vacations there, go enjoy life, go cruising and relaxing. But like the name of the game, most people are greedy, and he decides that he wants more riches. He wants fame and he wants fortune. He hears of a commercial building in Manhattan that is, the guy's desperate for money. He's selling this huge commercial building for $30 million. And he thinks to himself, if I buy this building, I'll play around with it, invest some money into it, I'm able to really fix it up. This is gold. I'll be able to turn my $30 million in a matter of a few years into $100 million. It's a guaranteed success. Few people tell him, all your money into one project is not such a good idea. But greed takes over, and the best of them, and he says, no, I'm going to turn this $100 million. He buys this property, and in a matter of 3 years, everything that could go wrong goes wrong. Similar to a lot of people 7, 8 years ago, when there was a crash in the market. I know personally a lot of people who lost a lot of money. I know a guy, he lost a good couple million. It was his entire fortune. Similar to this case, he lost everything. In a matter of a few years, market crashes, prices plummet, and in a short few years, he sees his entire fortune go up in smoke. In front of his own eyes, all his money is washed down the drain. 35 years of work down the drain. Everything he worked for, his whole life goal and life mission, down the drain. How do you think this guy will feel? This is probably one of the most devastating events that could happen to anybody. And the one person I'm thinking of, there's 2 or 3 guys that I know. This person, at the age of, in his 60s, he fell into depression, and he never snapped out of it. 7, 8 years later, I know he's still very down, although it's not the same level, severity of depression, dysfunctional. Such a thing, what goes on in a person's head, they're crippled for life. It's debilitating. A person falls into depression. They're borderline suicidal. It's one of the hardest things in the world to go through. Even the Gemara discusses that one of the 3 things, hardest things. A person to lose all their money, it's so debilitating. This is exactly what happened to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva worked for 24 years to amass the biggest yeshiva in the world. These were not regular people. This is 24,000 of the biggest rabbis in our history. Our entire Torah that we have, we discussed last week, that this written Torah that we have here is worthless without the oral law, without the Mishnayot and the Gemara and everything that we have. Not one thing in the Torah makes sense without the oral law, and we gave several examples of this last week, is all from these Tanaim, these rabbis from the Tanaic period. Rabbi Akiva sees 24 years of his life, everything go up in smoke. Not in 10 years, not in 5 years, not even in a year. In a matter of 33 days, everything he worked for the past 24 years, gone, washed away. And as the Gemara writes, the world was left shomim. It was desolate. It was empty of spirituality. This was everything. This was our entire religion. Is there anything more devastating to have than that? We're not talking about money. Everyone knows, of course, money, you need to live. But ultimately, loss of money is so transitory. Money is something which is temporal. Money is just for this world. Money doesn't continue to the next world. This, Rabbi Akiva's life and the Torah that he taught and his students were something eternal. This was Olam Haba. This was something which is forever and ever, for thousands and millions of years to come. The loss of such a thing, the magnitude of the loss was very overwhelming. By all means, Rabbi Akiva naturally should have thrown in the towel, should have called it quits, should have gone to some basement and worked on self-perfection. Perfected himself, worked on himself, reached the level of an angel, which he did reach. That's what he should have done. Rabbi Akiva did not do that. The Gemara writes that at that point, some interesting thing happened. He picked himself up and he moved down to the south of Israel. He went down Darom. He went to the south of Eretz Israel and he started fresh with 5 new students. The entire Torah that we have now, that we're learning, that we survived as a Jewish nation, is because of these 5 students. One of the 5 was Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. If not for Rabbi Akiva pushing and persevering and not throwing in the towel, we would not have a Torah today. The entire reason why we have the oral law, the oral tradition, is because of this man, unwavering drive. Nothing's going to stop me. It's God's world, but I have to do everything I can. And as long as I live, as long as my veins, the blood is going through my veins, and as long as my heart is pumping, I'm going to continue going. And such a devastating loss. It's not $30 million. It's not even $1 billion. This is eternal. Eternity. Rabbi Akiva didn't stop. It didn't stop him. Says the Pri Chadash, what we're celebrating here is not the fact that they stopped dying. That's ridiculous. Is the fact that Rabbi Akiva did not give up. The celebration and the message of Lag Ba Omer is as bad as the situation seems. And as many times as a person failed, don't throw in the towel. Keep going. There's light at the end of the tunnel. You don't know. How was Rabbi Akiva so driven? What was Rabbi Akiva thinking? I think, Rabbi Akiva really had a good grasp of life, and he understood the power of a human being. He understood that every day of life is an opportunity for growth. Every day of life is an opportunity for a person to change themselves, to shape and mold themselves to who they will be forever. The opportunities a person has in this lifetime is something which will last you a lifetime. How long is forever? Forever is a very long time. Compared to the 70, 80 years that we live here, forever is a very long time. Rabbi Victor Miller Zatzal gives an example, a tziyur, of what exactly means forever. He says, imagine this room here. Imagine a bird would be allowed to go to the ocean and every 1,000 years pick up a grain of salt, a grain of sand, and bring it and drop it in this room. How long will it take for this bird to fill up this room? Every 1,000 years, he picks up a grain of sand and puts it in this room. Rabbi Victor Miller says that's what eternity means. This life that we get so sucked into, and we feel that this is our life, this is going to continue forever, is a very short temporal life. Rabbi Akiva understood this very clearly. And every day is an opportunity to grow. I can't throw in the towel. And although you're 60 years old and you lost $30 million, I got to keep on going. This is Torah. This is eternity. I have to keep on going. Where did he develop this drive? I think he developed this drive and motivation from an incident that happened to him, a well-known incident. Rabbi Akiva, at the age of 40, before that he hated the religion and he hated the rabbis. Says the Gemara that Rabbi Akiva, at the age of 40, before that, when he would say, bring me a rabbi and I'll bite him like a donkey. Tremendous animosity towards the rabbis. But why like a donkey? Donkeys, I've never been bit by a donkey, but apparently when they bite so hard that it breaks the bones. That's the hatred he had for this religion and for the rabbis. And at the age of 40, hopefully one lecture I'll go through his life story. It's a fascinating story of Akiva's. There's a lot to learn from his life. He started learning the Aleph Beis based on his wife. We'll discuss it in one of the lectures, future lectures. He started learning Torah. It was very difficult for him. Learning the Aleph Beis at the age of 40. Very hard. Very easy to throw in the towel. He was passing by a small stream, and the famous story that we know, he saw that there was a little, it was like a thing of water, and the water was coming dripping down, a little waterfall, and there was a rock underneath. And there was a water dripping on this rock. He took a look at the rock, and he saw that there was a hole pierced through this rock. And he says, wow, this is incredible. There's a rock which is so hard, and you have water, which drop by drop drips on this rock, eventually pierces a hole through the rock. And he took such a lesson. He was amazed by the sight. Your average person would look at this and say, wow, very cool. Move on with their life. This was a life-changing event for Rabbi Akiva. And he took it as a lesson. If a rock which is so hard, water constantly drips on it, doesn't stop. It pierces a hole through a rock. Such a thing is so hard as a rock. And water is so soft. How much more so for the Torah, which is compared to fire, and a person's heart, which is so soft. The Torah will eventually pierce through a person's heart. And he went back and he continued learning, and he became the great Rabbi Akiva. From that moment on, he realized that a human being is here for growth and to persevere and to not throw in the towel, to keep on going. I want to, in order to get this very clear, I want to give you a few facts from history, from life, from people who succeeded, that any personality in history that succeeded in any area of life went through complete Gehenna to get to that point. As I'll share with you. Here's some facts about a famous personality. I'm going to read you the facts and ask you who this person was. Listen to his life. It's unbelievable. You won't believe it. At the age of 7, this individual, his family was forced out of their home, and he had to work to support his family. At the age of 7, he was working to support his family. At the age of 9, his mother died. Age of 22, he tried a business. He failed miserably, bankrupt. At the age of 23, he ran for state legislature, and he lost. He lost his job and couldn't get into law school. At the age of 24, he borrowed a large sum of money, invested it in a business, went bankrupt once again. He spent the next 17 years of his life paying off this debt. At the age of 26, one of the most devastating things happened to him. He was engaged, finally something going right for him. Of course, his bride dies, and he was left heartbroken. In fact, at the age of 27, he had a total nervous breakdown, understandably, and he fell into bed for the next 6 months, completely handicapped in bed. At the age of 29, he snaps back, sought to become Speaker of the state legislature, and of course, you guessed it, he loses again. 31, he wants to become the elector, and he lost. 34, he ran for Congress, and he loses. 39, re-election for Congress. You guessed it, he loses. At the age of 40, he sought a job of land officer in his home and was right away rejected. 45, he ran for Senate of the United States and he lost. 47, he sought the vice presidential nomination at his party's national convention and he got less than 100 votes. 49, he ran for U.S. Senate again and he lost. You would think this guy is out of his mind. Just stop it already. Go live in your little farm. Go do something. What are you doing? You're a complete loser. This is the biggest badbacht I could possibly imagine in my life. Is there anything worse than this? For anyone who's watching, you don't know what badbacht it means, a down and out loser. Right? Any bigger loser than this? At the age of 51, he was elected the President of the United States. Who is this? Very good. Abraham Lincoln. One of the biggest, most famous, greatest presidents we've had in our history was Abraham Lincoln. He went from loss to loss, from failure to failure, to eventually become one of the greatest presidents. And he's on every $5 bill. Anytime you use a $5 bill, boom, there's Abraham Lincoln. He succeeded. He's one of the most well-known presidents. Failure to success. There's a book written by Tal Ben Shachar. Anyone heard of Tal Ben Shachar? Yeah. Tal Ben Shachar, he gives one of the most famous courses in Harvard University. It's a course on happiness. total secular Jew. He's been giving this course in Harvard for 15 years or so. And he has a famous book which is called In Pursuit of Perfect. I recommend it. He speaks about perfectionism. And he writes that perfectionism is one of the main causes of people's unhappiness, the cause of unhappiness in life. People making goals and too much which is beyond and above them. And it speaks about length for about 250 pages about this trait of perfectionism, how it affects people. And he writes something very amazing over here, that the only way that a person could truly reach success is only through the failure. That if you're not failing, you're not going to reach success. And he writes that someone who's a perfectionist thinks that life should go at a straight line, that he has to reach his goal, his destination, without any bumps in the road. And he says that's a very warped way of looking at things, but it's not possible. The only way to reach that destination of success, the only way to become that doctor, the only way to become that great Torah giant is only through falling, only through the failure. And he gives examples. He says Thomas Edison, he registered 1,093 patents, including one associated with the light bulb, the phonograph, the telegraph, and cement. He proudly declared that he failed his way to success. Listen to what he says. Someone pointed out to him that he failed over 10,000 times in all the inventions, 10,000 times for the 4 or 5 things he discovered. What was his response? Edison responded, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work. This was his mentality. This was his drive and his motivation. Babe Ruth, considered by many as the greatest baseball player in history. Babe Ruth hit in his career 714 career home runs. That's a lot. A record that stood for over 39 years. 714 career home runs. People don't know, that part a lot of people know. People don't know that he topped the league 5 times in the number of strikeouts. Do you know that he was the top guy to strike out the most amount of times? 5 times in his career. That part you don't hear. You only hear about the success. You only hear about the accomplishments. Michael Jordan, arguably one of the best and greatest sports players in our history. Look what he writes. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times, I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot, and he missed. Michael Jordan, the great Michael Jordan, 26 times, he missed the game-winning shot. I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. The only way he became Michael Jordan is, again, through the failure. And you look at anybody in history, if you analyze their life, you take a look at their life, you see that they had a lot of downfalls. A lot of times where it was complete failure. They're ready to throw in the towel. But they had a drive, they had a goal. The Hall of Fame, I got to make it big. I got to become famous, I got to become rich. Give you another example. When Kobe Bryant, he tore his Achilles a couple years ago, my brother sent me this. He tweeted all his fans the following paragraph. I'll read it to you. And you see the point that I draw out from here. At the age of 35, he's already older for a sports player. He was in the league for 17 years. And he tore his Achilles, which is a very, very difficult injury to snap out of. He writes, obviously I censored it because these people don't have a proper way of talking. So he writes, all the training and sacrifice just flew out the window with one step that I've done millions of times. The frustration is unbearable. Keep in mind, this is the night after his injury. The anger is rage. Why did this happen? It makes no sense. Now I'm supposed to come back from this and be the same player or better at the age of 35? How in the world am I supposed to do that? I have no clue. Do I have the consistent will to overcome this thing? Maybe I should break out the rocking chair and reminisce on the career that was. Maybe this is how my book ends. Maybe Father Time has defeated me. Then again, maybe not. It's 3:30 a.m. and my foot feels like dead weight. My head is spinning in pain from pain medications, and I'm wide awake. Forgive my venting, but it feels good to vent, to let it out, to feel as this is the worst thing to ever happen. Because after all the venting, a real perspective sets in. Stop feeling sorry for yourself, find the silver lining, and get to work with the same belief, same drive, and the same conviction as ever. One day the beginning of a new career journey will commence. This was just a few months ago. Today is not that day. If you see me in a fight with a bear, pray for the bear. That's Mamba mentality. We don't quit, we don't cower, we don't run. We endure and conquer. And then he thanks all his fans. Now, when I read this, I was thinking to myself the following thought. Look how much Kobe Bryant accomplished in his career. At this point, when he retired, just to give you some of the facts, he was a 5-time NBA champion, 5 rings, 2-time NBA Finals MVP, the most valuable player, 16-time NBA All-Star, one of the greatest records, 16-time NBA All-Star, 4-time NBA All-Star Game MVP, 11-time All-NBA First Team, 9-time All-NBA All-Defensive Team. He was the NBA Slam Dunk Contest. There's nothing he didn't do. 2-time NBA scoring champion, and he was the Los Angeles Lakers all-time leading scorer in history. I would think that at the age of 35, you accomplished so much. Just call it quits, you tore your Achilles, announced your retirement, and go home and rest. He can't. I got to keep on going. As long as I could, I have to keep on going. Why? Fame, fortune, and as a nice ending, a few months ago, Kobe Bryant. This was his life. This was a perspective in his life. If these sports players have such a mentality, have such a drive, it's not just sports players, people out there with wealth, with money, with fortune, have such a perspective for something which is so fake. Everything that's driving at them is a thirst for fame, a thirst for glory, a thirst for honor, a thirst for wealth. Nothing real, nothing spiritual, nothing meaningful. And this is how they live their life. How much more so should we, the chosen people, that we are God's chosen people, we're the purpose of this life, and we have a lot of downfalls. Life is not a straight line. You get hit many times left and right. A lot of times where you make a plan this year on Yom Kippur, you think to yourself, I'm going to start learning Torah, I'm going to start going to classes, and you get hit, and you fall out of it. It's very hard to snap back. You tell yourself, I'm not going to speak Lashon Hara this year. It's going to be a different year. I'm going to care more about my parents and my friends. I'm going to act more respectfully. You fall back again. This year, I'm not going to allow society to affect me. There's so many things bombarding us in our brains and our lives, how we live. This year, for the girls, I'm going to be more modest. And then it's hard, and then this and that. It hits you. Big nisyonot, big challenges. The lesson from Rabbi Akiva on Lag Ba Omer is a lesson to not throw in the towel. You can't give up. As a Jew, there's no such thing in your definition, in dictionary, as giving up. As long as a person's alive, you have to persevere, you have to go. You have to move. You have to accomplish. This past week, someone asked me, I wasn't planning on playing, there was a 3-on-3 tournament. I don't know if anyone heard of Hoops for Hopes. You saw the signs all over the community. So he asked me to be on their team to play. And I was very tempted. I gave in to temptation. I still love basketball. So I went to play. The winner there were many, many teams in this 3-on-3 tournament. There were hundreds of people there. The winner would get to play the Los Angeles Lakers, 3 of the Lakers. Robert Horry was there. He came in the end. Ron Artest, the man of world peace. And Jordan Clarkson. This is who he got to play. So I'll tell you why I'm telling you this. What I was amazed by, when they walked into the gym, after all the teams had played, they came for like the last half hour. All the Jewish kids, everybody there, even a lot of adults, they're out there with their papers and autographs and their basketballs, getting their autograph. These are even not even like the best players. Robert Horry's retired, the other 2 are still playing. And everyone's all over them. You can't imagine, we're literally all over them. You look at this, wow, look how much fame, look how much fortune and success they have. I turned to one of my teammates. I said, as much as there's like a sense of like awe when you see these players, I said, this is olam hafuch. This is a backwards world. You see this fame, this fortune, it's all fake. There's nothing real about it. Just because a guy has a talent to throw a basketball into a hoop, we should pay them millions and millions of dollars. Doctors who are saving lives are making, the real successful ones, what are they making? $1 million a year, $2 million a year, the surgeons, right? And here you have these basketball players that just have a talent of throwing a ball in a hoop. Don't get me wrong, I love basketball, I love playing it, I love watching it. But if you think about it on a logical level, we're giving these guys millions of dollars. Why? Because they know how to throw a basketball in a hoop. Yippee-ki-yay, right? But this is olam hafuch. You see this. If they're getting such honor, I told my class when I was teaching the day after, I said, you have to realize that whatever they're getting, this is a small glimpse of olam haba. Who's going to be on top in the next world? Who has the real fame and fortune? Who's in the real Hall of Fame? It's the Jews. It's the ones who didn't throw in the towel. The ones that were hit left and right, and they persevered. They didn't give up, and they continued growing. I know someone in his 40s, when his father passed away, I'll conclude with this. His father passed away, he started saying Kaddish. But he didn't know how to say Kaddish. He knew it was important, and he wanted to say Kaddish. He didn't know how to read Hebrew. He started saying it out of a Persian Farsi Siddur, saying the words. They have the English ones also. You try to make out the words. And it bothered him that his father used to tell him when he was younger, come, learn Hebrew, you got to learn. They didn't care. It bothered him that he didn't know how to say Kaddish. He decided at that point in his late 40s that he's going to learn the Aleph Beis. He started learning the Aleph Beis. And I'm sure he counted a lot of struggles learning the Aleph Beis. Such an older age, it's hard. Slowly, he started keeping Shabbat in late 40s. It's very uncommon. Now, he's 72, 73. I know this person. Every day he goes to the Daf Yomi class. Every day he's learning Gemara. He's going through Gemara after Gemara. He has his Mishnayot with the Farsi words on top. And I'm sure he's encountering a lot of struggles. It's a big fight. But ultimately, end of days, who's going to be in that Hall of Fame? Person like this. I'm not going to cower. I'm not going to quit. I get hit, I get knocked down, I get up again, I move on. For me, Rabbi Akiva was a tremendous lesson in chizuk. I moved 8 months ago from New York to LA. And I was thinking to myself, it was the right move. My wife wasn't happy there. After 4 years being the rabbi in Plainview, involved in Great Neck and outreach, I had a lot going for me. And even right before I left, I did my first wedding. Spoke in front of 500-600 people. You get a tremendous amount of honor. You're up there, people clapping for you. Baruch Hashem, I gave a good speech up there, and everyone comes over. You get a tremendous amount of kavod, a tremendous amount of honor. For me to pick up and leave, my wife wasn't happy. I had to leave. It was very difficult for me to leave. I built up 4 years, and I, Baruch Hashem, got a tremendous amount of divine assistance. I have to go back to LA. No man's land. I don't know anybody. No one knows me. I'm starting all over. And then you think Rabbi Akiva. It's nothing what I went through compared to Rabbi Akiva, but it's hard. It's very difficult. And Baruch Hashem, Hashem sent little, messengers and shluchim here and there. I got to meet through, I mentioned this, Hashkacha, I met Ethan, and I met this guy, and Isaac, and guy from, YouTube, and now maybe on Torah Anytime. Different people you meet. And because of you, I'm able to get back into lectures, and thanks to you guys, right? It's hard, but you have to keep on going. It's very easy to just throw in the towel. The lesson of Lag Ba Omer is this lesson, that you want success, you're going to get hit, you're going to fall. But you can't throw in the towel. No matter what life brings about your way, what challenges you're facing, don't throw in the towel. This was Rabbi Akiva's whole life. And this is the reason why we have this religion. If he threw in the towel, we would not have all this Torah Shebaal Peh, this entire oral law. None of it. And last but not least, one more example. When Rabbi Yosef, Zichron Tzadik Livracha, the few days before he was passing away, someone sent me a pic that he was in the hospital. All sorts of wires were attached to his body. You can't imagine. Man in his 90s, he's frail, he's weak. And you see this picture, he has his Gemara in his face, and he's learning away. You would think your whole life you learned, your whole life you taught. This is coming to an end. You have all sorts of wires with tremendous amount of pain. What are you doing, old man? Just rest in your bed, calm, relax. Ravadia and the Gedolim all understood the great rabbis. You know, the problem with these books that you read about the great rabbis, the Gedolim, is a lot of people have a problem with them. One aspect of them is that all they show in these books is how great they were. This rabbi finished Gemaras this many times. This rabbi did this. So many wonderful things they did in life. But you don't see the Gehenna they went through, how much blood, sweat, and tears they poured to reach where they reached. It was not easy. It was a tremendous challenge. And you have to understand that anyone who's in that winner's circle, they paid a hefty price for it. And we have to keep that in mind. This Lag Ba Omer coming up, you want to know what the celebration is? It's not because they stopped dying. That's ridiculous. The celebration is the fact that Rabbi Akiva did not give up. He continued with 5 students, to rebuild everything. This entire Torah Sheba'al Peh that was transmitted down the generations is because of this drive, this motivation to not throw in the towel. Hashem should help us all. We should always be driven and not be fazed by failure. And failure is part of success. Hashem should help us to truly be in the winner's circle and in the real Hall of Fame.